Euro people, pay my respects to elders past and present. And I'd also like to pass on my apologies from Mr. Bernard Carlin, who I understood was to present to you today, and I think has presented to you on previous occasions as well. He really enjoys talking to people who work out there in the field. We are a little bit ivory tower, I'll admit it. You know, we work in the office. It's always good to talk to people who are dealing with our customers and people on the road, particularly young drivers who we like to make sure have a strong road safety ethos as soon as they get behind the wheel. Over the last few years. And it really talks about what we're out there to achieve and what you guys are out there to achieve in terms of getting our trauma down to zero. Yeah.
In 2019, 352 people died on our roads. What would be a more acceptable number?
Acceptable? 70 maybe?
Actually, this is what 70 people looks like.
It's my family.
So now what do you think would be a more acceptable number?
0. 0.
That's what we're all about. And look, I mean, one of the things about this particular advertising campaign that really appealed is that it appealed to everyone. So a lot of our advertising is particularly targeted at, you know, young males or, you know, older people potentially. They all have a particular certain target market, but this one really appeals to everyone because everyone knows someone, everyone's family could be affected by trauma. Just to give you a brief high-level overview of where we are this year in terms of the road toll, these stats are about a week or so old now, but at that point we had 252 fatalities, which was 22 up on where we were last year. Last year was a record low road toll of 275. So we are trending up. In terms of the 10-year average, the 3-year average, we are about 10 below that though. So you know, it's not the direction we want to be heading. We want to be always heading downwards. But last year was a particularly good year. Well, not good for the 275 and their families, of course, but in terms of our overall trends. If we have a look at where we're seeing those trends, it's probably nothing surprising to you all. We're seeing a particular increase in our drivers and passengers. But again, those numbers are fairly consistent with the 3-year average. Just when you compare them to last year's, we're looking like we're up quite a bit. And another thing to note that's of particular importance to us is a vulnerable road user group. This is the motorcyclists and the pedestrians. And together they make up about 25 to 28% of the road toll. And we see that consistently. It's a real challenge for us going forward. As well as the ongoing focus we have on driving down those big numbers in the driver and the pedestrian space as well, but particularly our vulnerable road users are an area of interest to us. I guess we like to make the point whenever we talk to people that you know, despite the ongoing trauma, despite what we see and hear in the news, that we have come a really long way since the late 70s. When we were up over 1,300. Now, I'll confess that I wasn't alive in 1978, but it seems like it would have been a really terrible time in terms of people knowing, and obviously my family know people in the past who were affected by road trauma. So it is, you know, why we get up in the morning. And look, to have come as far as we have by 2022 when we had a 275 road toll is really fantastic, but we know the leading countries in the world are about half that rate. And what we've seen over the last 4 decades is that every decade we get about a halving. If we can continue to put road safety reforms in place in terms of the rate, so that's really what drives road safety strategy and policy in New South Wales at the high level. A lot of these reforms are the ones you would expect, have really fed into this in terms of our infrastructure, our seatbelts, our vehicle safety, our enforcement programs, so things like RBT, have really driven that massive reduction that we see there. But we know that there are continuing pressures, so particularly population and economic pressures. They're always trying to push the road toll up. And the last couple of years have been a particular challenge because we've had COVID having up and downward effects on what's happening with trauma. And it's something we're really closely looking at in terms of what the future effect will be. Now, I think positive, this will be of no surprise at all to you, and very positive. We know that the number of learner drivers themselves involved in serious incidents is very, very low, reflecting the fact that they've got an experienced person alongside them, assisting them all the way. And that's been very consistent over time, that very low number. But our problem, which you'll also all be critically aware of, is that red spike, that period where the driver first takes that step of getting behind the wheel, and that spike really reflects what the research suggests to us it reflects is really that combination of inexperience, but also for our young people, the risk-taking behaviours that can occur once there's the freedom to drive by themselves. But you know, all that protective work that can be done in the L phase to make sure people are equipped as they can be when they take that step into the P phase is really where we would like to focus our attention when it comes to the GLS, because bringing that peak down we know will have a really profound effect on drivers everywhere. Road trauma.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We have that in safe drivers course, etc., but we don't have the extension to the right.
Yeah, the purple.
We also
You don't have purple?
The extension to the left, which I've seen, most of the purple. We don't have the extension to the left, where also I've seen graphs that have, when you're a passenger under 16 and you're in a car, you're at this risk. Is there any way we can get something like that gives that whole life?
Yeah,
These
sure.
figures are great, and we get ones that are 3 years old, and I know that graph's a little bit.
Yeah, it does take a little while for us to there's always a bit of a lag in the crash data, you know.
Fatalities and stuff, I don't know if anyone else in the room would have seen that quickly. But it's great information.
Yeah, we can definitely work with the team to see what else how we can bolster what's in the pack for sure.
Thank you.
I guess you know, in terms of what we're doing in road safety, we're not only focusing on the driver, the road user, but also all the other things that we know influence safety. So, you know, the vehicle safety measures that we put in place, the enforcement measures, be they police or automated, the infrastructure that we can put in place, and all of these things in New South Wales are funded by the Community Road Safety Fund. So we've done some in-depth strategic modelling with the Monash University Accident Research Centre. And this shows us that, you know, when thinking about that big graph and how far we've come, if we hadn't implemented the measures that we had over the last decade, we would have had another 1,400 people lose their lives and 24,000 people suffer serious injuries. So it's really just to indicate to you that when putting the package together, we put together to put in place on the roads, we like to look at and try and quantify the actual benefits of what's happening in making a safer system. And obviously the Ls and Ps, the graduated licensing system, and the role that you as driving instructors play is a key part of that as well, that overall safer system. I won't linger too long here because I'm conscious that I'm standing between you and cakes or something. Cakes, tea, coffee and tea. But you're probably having a big blood glucose drop at this point. There have been a lot of achievements in terms of the overall plan that's guided us from the 2018 period to the end of 2021 was the Road Safety Plan 2021. There were a lot of progress. A lot of progress was made over that period in terms of our road safety infrastructure, the introduction of the motorcycle clothing assessment program to try and improve the safety of motorcyclist clothing. Introduction of a new testing facility out at Cadell, enhancements to our drink and drug driving approach and an increase in the interlock program, introduction of mobile phone detection cameras, in ongoing delivery of our enhanced enforcement program and speed management, as well as mandatory initiatives like our road safety education program and our ongoing initiatives like Safer Drivers, local government road safety course. And I'd note particularly in the context of Safer Drivers course, I'm conscious many, if not most of you, would be involved in the delivery of that piece. We're now sitting above 35% of those who progress from their Ls have completed the Safer Drivers course. So really encouraging. It's growing year on year in terms of its size, and there's an ongoing commitment to that course.
Louise,
yeah.
Just on that, what evidence or what have you noticed in road user behaviour, statistics, crashes? What impact would you see the Safer Drivers course may have had in terms of numbers or reduction in fatality rates, crash rates?
Yeah, look, I think we are doing an evaluation of the course to try and we've done a process evaluation so far, which was really just about improving the wheels to make sure they don't squeak. But the ongoing outcomes evaluation is something that's underway. But I would say that in terms of what we're seeing with the GLS, if we look at broadly, we've seen a 64% reduction in young driver fatalities since 2000. There's been a slight acceleration over the last 10 years, which is potentially not entirely attributable to the Safer Drivers course, but it's the whole system and the suite of restrictions, conditions, training opportunities that young people have in place. So I guess the shorter answer is we don't know exactly yet, but everything is indicating that it's certainly not having a negative effect at all.
Do you expect to see a reduction in that most at-risk period directly after people get their keys as a result of the Safer Drivers?
That certainly did the design of it. So when it was designed back in 2012, when the group came together, there was an expert group, some of you may be aware of this, that came together and designed the course. That was the intent. So it's designed to impart those low-risk driving strategies that we see in the crashes that you then see in the P period. That's the philosophy of it. And to provide that information in a way that's sort of accessible and usable by people in that age group. So yes, we would hope to. I think the challenge that we're always going to have is that you're always going to have people who have less experience just getting behind the wheel for the first time in that red P phase. And as we've seen even recently with some really tragic crashes, young people sometimes make really dumb decisions in terms of their risk-taking, and we can do everything we can to try and tighten the system so they do less of that. And that's, really what we're all here to do.
So one other question. The inclusion of people over 25 for the Safer Driver course. We're starting to see a few more people asking about it, especially when they don't have mandated 120 hours. A lot of people are interested in doing, we don't see a lot of people over 25, but people are asking and disappointed that they can't be involved because they're new drivers as well.
Yeah.
Is that something that's being considered?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons we haven't done that yet, and I think it goes back to the fact that we haven't fully evaluated the course and its outcomes. It also goes to the design of the course. So, if you think about the types of class, particularly in the classroom space, the types of activities you do in that first component of the course, they are targeted to be about peer-to-peer learning, which tends to appeal more to younger people. It's the design of the course is more towards that. So, and obviously the course is subsidised quite heavily. So, in terms of getting bang for our buck, as well as appropriateness, that's and the fact that the demand is a bit lower because the 120-hour requirement's not there. The combination of things.
Is the helping a learner driver become a safer driver still running?
Yes. Yes, and it's being developed into an online resource as well now, but it's still being run through mostly through the local government program, so through our behavioural program at the local level. Yeah, definitely still running.
Something, I just thought it was something that over 25s, all supervisors, it's aimed at supervisors.
Yeah, that's right. And the online resource should actually, by putting it online, should be able to increase the reach, because at the moment the reach is quite small. You have to know there's one locally, sign up to it, go along. But when you do go, it's quite helpful. So yes,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now I've been the driver instructor, I notice a lot more than when I was driving, because I'm in the passenger seat, and I see still so many people on their phones, texting, calling, especially even people in higher end vehicles that would definitely have Bluetooth on their iPhone. They should obviously just be using it. I don't understand. Driving down here today, I've just driven a 2003 Camry, and it's going into Shitbox Valley, excuse my language. And I just drove down from Newcastle and I had no idea where I was going. And it was extremely difficult in the fact that I normally rely on my GPS to connect through my Android, whatever in my car. So an option would be to provide maybe cheap or free Bluetooth connections for people that would have those lower end cars, and an education on how to use those and setting them up in order for people that can't afford a nice car that does have Bluetooth in it. And if it was a subsidised program or whatever else, I just found that it might be just an extra thing, because I think phones are going to be the biggest problem.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a challenge, and yeah, I'll take that on board. We can certainly look at what we can do, particularly promotionally, to encourage people to uptake
So
things like cradles and things. Yeah.
And show them how to connect their phones up and stuff.
Yeah.
Just the cradle. Yeah, I had a friend recently that got caught by the phone camera, and for some bizarre reason, she just liked to travel with her phone on her lap. It wasn't on, but that's where she liked to put it. She was incredulous that she got a fine.
Yeah. Look, they can't be touching any part of your body, but the cameras are pretty darn good. I would keep the phone well away, even if you're not touching it. They use artificial intelligence and scan the photos, and they really are getting it's getting better and better in terms of being able to pick it up. So we are picking up a lot of drivers, and we have seen the detection rates drop. So even though we are seeing a lot of it on the network, and cops say the same thing when they're driving around, they see it. We've had at our camera sites, we do think the cameras are having an impact. It would be worse without them. So that's why we're continuing to deliver that program as well. I'll jump through this fairly quickly, but I just wanted to highlight to you that we've recently released a new road safety action plan, which sets out actions between now and 2026 and new targets to the end of 2026. And the development of this was informed by a lot of community consultation. We reached out to members of the community to come to forums, through an online survey, through a stakeholder forum, and workshops, etc. And we also received submissions from the public. And one thing that's really important to call out is that we have a really high level of support for the broad range of things that are being done across New South Wales at the moment, so in terms of all of our safety measures. And there's also support for things like having a look more closely at the motorcycle GLS and what that does, and enhancing that at levels of 81% people supporting RBT, things like that, have really high levels of support. Even mobile speed cameras, which are a little bit maligned in the media, but we know in road safety really do work. Even they have 2/3 of the community actually support them. So these are some of the research inputs that have gone into the work that's been done for the new road safety action plan. There's also been some in-depth trauma modelling. So we partnered with an expert modeller from Sweden, which is one of the leading jurisdictions in road safety, to look at, can we actually get to zero? Is it possible to get there? And we think we can get pretty darn close. If we do, an awful lot of an awful lot between now and 2050, 2056 period. And that's across safety, it's across behaviour, it's across the design of our urban streets and the quality of our street spaces in terms of slowing people down, and also creating places for people like pedestrians and cyclists to walk. And then also critically, the vehicle safety features. I think that's another thing. It's not only the Bluetooth technology, it's the new stuff that's coming that's proven already, like AEB, lane keep assist. Getting that to our youngest drivers. They often have the crappiest cars, and that's, you know, probably the most perverse thing about it. So we do have new fatality reduction targets. Oh, sorry, what have I done? Here we go. So we're now aiming for a 50% reduction in fatalities by 2030. This is more ambitious than our last target. Our last target was a 30% reduction by 2021, which was achieved, potentially helped along by some lockdowns in 2020 and 2021, but definitely we were heading in the right direction even before that. But to get less than 164 deaths on our roads is going to be a really, really significant stretch. And also to get our serious injuries down. So to get a 30% reduction in our serious injuries by 2030 will be a big stretch to do that. Okay, in terms of what's in the Road Safety Action Plan, there's a whole heap of things. Chris, are you circulating the presentations for afterwards? Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely. Look, and the full plans are available online, so I won't go through all of these in detail, but a lot of what you would expect is in here. So ongoing delivery of infrastructure, measures to try and accelerate that uptake of safe vehicles by everyone, but particularly the most vulnerable, being our younger people, our older people, people on country roads. We know the uptake of safer vehicles in country areas is lower. And doing that really through supporting the feds to mandate these safety features earlier. Get them on as many vehicles as we can. It takes decades to get the vehicle fleet safer, even once we get a mandate. We're also working to continue to deliver the camera programs. They're there, they're important, even if you love to loathe them. To optimise our drink and drug driving enforcement with police. We also have a measure to look at enhancing the motorcycle graduated licensing scheme and rider training. I'm not sure if any of you are also involved in that space, or if you're mostly in the driving instructor space, but it's an area where our GLS is not as robust as it is in the driver space. So there's a real opportunity for reform there. Yeah, look, I'll leave those ones with you because there is more to look through, and the Road Safety Action Plan itself is available online as well. So, as I mentioned, there's a couple of call-outs. One's, as I mentioned, the motorcycle GLS enhancement that we're doing. We're also delivering a new online learner licence education and testing platform. And look, this will replace it will offer an alternative to doing your DKT in service centres. So I'm not sure if anyone's heard of this. They've done it in other jurisdictions.
Does that start next year?
Hopefully. Working on it. Working on it. That is artificially the date we're looking to work towards. Yeah. So we... Yeah, so look, it will. They've got it in Victoria and Queensland for those who aren't aware of it. It's an online system where you go on and you do. It's similar to like e-learning modules, so more interactive. There's videos, there's little animations and things, more so than reading the chalky road user handbook that we've got out there. So young people can engage with the content and then do their practice quizzes and tests online. Yeah, sorry.
So with all the leading up to that, with the checking the identification and all the documentation and the medical stuff, how do you ensure that that's not their brother doing the tests and all that kind of stuff? I guess that's something you work around. Yeah, look, there's always going to be a bit of a risk there.
in terms of there are some security measures being built in terms of connecting the system back to your service login and things like that. In terms of proof of identification, all the measures that we've got currently will be retained, so you're still going to have to go into service to show your actual evidences of birth, etc., your POI, to get before you get your licence issued. But yeah, look, there is a challenge there. We'd say that talking to the other jurisdictions that have already done this, it hasn't eventuated as a problem to date in those systems, and they've been up and running for quite a few years now. But it is, it is a challenge. But I would say too that when we introduced the DKT in its current form, that was in the 90s, 95 I believe, the DKT was introduced in a similar form to currently. And it has, since that time, we've introduced 120 hours, a more robust driving test. So there's a lot more safeguards there to make sure that when people get behind the road, that behind the drive, it's not just dependent on this multiple choice test that you've done in a centre. Currently people can see all the questions and all the answers online. So how much they're actually learning when compared to a more interactive, in-depth kind of training module, they're the kinds of things that have been, I guess, weighed up.
Sorry, I'm delivering the dealer program. Well, that's why I asked about next year. I believe this new book's coming out, so that'll be integrated with what we do. Yeah, look, so the Road User Handbook itself, there's actually a new release of the Road User Handbook at the end of this month, the end of November. Thank you. Yep. And it'll be in 2 new community languages that it hasn't been in before, which are Persian and Thai, yep. I think this time. And yes, and so we are looking at how we integrate it in with DLAP as well, so that DLAP providers can help people get on board with the OLED if they want to. And look, obviously, you can still you'll still be able to choose to do the DKT route if that suits you better, to have someone, a support person with you and do it that way. But yeah, we'll be going out with info to DLAP providers on the OLED when it's done.
Can I we'll have a couple of minutes for questions at the end?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, look, I think I'm nearly at the end. I just wanted to highlight as well that the other programs, policies and initiatives that we've been delivering in partnership with you will continue. Mm-hmm. Killed it. Don't worry, we'll get back there one day. Look, so, things like Safer Drivers course is going to continue, requirements in the to complete your driving instructor hours is going to continue. One thing that the team highlighted to me that I wanted to note is that from our data, we appear to have had a slight dip in people completing 3 for 1 when they're progressing. So in 2020, we had 66,500 learners had done at least one a driving instruction, structured lesson. In 2021, it was about 58,500, so just about a 12% drop. I'm not sure if that's something that you're seeing in your own business, but it's just something that's come up in our data that we thought was worth putting out there and noting.
Partly due to the lockdown?
Yeah. Possibly, yeah.
And partly due to Service New South Wales was telling people they weren't allowed to have a driving licence.
Okay, right.
But we won't talk about that now.
Yeah, hopefully we're past that now. Look, and look, we are conscious that 2020 and 21 are going to be, they're funny years for everyone in terms of looking at what happened. Yeah, cool. All right, was there any other questions? We did have some things go through.
With the foreign licence holders,